Hey Adelstein fans, I'm Elizabeth, wine educator at Adelstein Vineyard, and I wanted to give you a brief tutorial as to how to blind taste in case this is your first time or you're not as familiar with blind tasting as, let's say, the professional soms that do it every day. Evaluating wine is just tasting with a certain language, and we taste with this language so we know that if I say a wine is medium body with high acidity and low tannin, we all know exactly what that wine generally tastes like. So that's what we're doing here. We're just learning a new language. Now, learning this new language comes in 3 different parts: the visual analysis, the aroma analysis, and the tasting analysis. So let's dive in to how to look at the wine and evaluate it just by looking at it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one of my 3 wines here. I'm going to pick up the glass, and without agitating it too much, I am going to tilt the glass at a 45-degree angle or so, just so that I can see the difference between the rim of the glass as well as the base of the glass. Now the rim can tell you the age of the wine, whether it's youthful or severely aged, or it can tell you what type of grape it might be. This will be your indicator for both white wine and red wine. Typically with a youthful white wine, there's going to be a little bit of a watery rim, but the opposite is for red wine. It would be more of an aged wine. When you're looking at the depth of the glass and that saturation of color right in the center, that can also tell you both the age of the wine as well as the grape variety. For example, if I have a green hue in a white wine, that could be something that's very, very youthful versus something that's a little bit more brown that has age to it. For a red wine, the same would be the case with age. You'd have a little bit more of that brick or tawny color in your red wine versus a blue hue for a very youthful red. So that's how we identify it just by looking at it. You can actually tell a lot by looking at your wine, and it just is that much easier when you have a bright or white background. Now next we're going to move on to the aroma of the wine. And the reason why we didn't want to agitate our wine too much when we were looking at the glass was because we need to figure out what the intensity of the wine is. So when you first want to start smelling your wine, you'll want to pick up your glass, again, not agitating it too much, and you're going to start slowly down by your belly button and bring that wine glass up, inhaling as you go, until you finally can smell the wine. Now I can start to smell this wine just about at my chin, so that's pretty good aromas coming out of the glass here. If you can smell your wine down closer to your belly button or your stomach, that'd be a pretty high intensity wine. If you have to get your nose in the glass and really inhale, that's very low intensity wine. What you're also going to want to start identifying are the different smells that you're smelling, the different aromas. Are you smelling something like fresh cut straw, something like pencil, something like berry or white peaches? Do you smell sage aromas, herbaceous aromas? Are you getting something a little bit more slatey, like it just rained outside? All of those can be found in a glass of wine. You can also have more than one aroma in your glass. It's very common. You won't just have one-dimensional wine that smells like peaches, because really that would just be peach juice. So when you're looking at your glass and you're smelling your glass, take note of what you're smelling. Now that we're done smelling the wine, we'll move on to tasting. Now tasting can be a little bit more in depth. You'll definitely get the flavors and the taste of the wine, but you're also going to want to start thinking about the weight. So a couple of things before we actually taste. You're going to want to learn how to introduce air into your mouth while you're tasting. It's a little bit challenging. As long as you don't spill down the front of your shirt or choke on the wine, we're doing great. But even before that, we're going to prime our palate. And just like you would with a house, you want to prime the inside of your mouth so you're not tasting anything left over from breakfast, lunch, snacks, whatever. So when you take your first sip, take about half an ounce or so, not a big gulp, but swish it around like mouthwash and just get it into all the nooks and crannies. Make sure that there's nothing left outside of the wine. And you'll do it similar to this. Done. Now you can spit that wine out or you can enjoy it. That's up to you. It's your house. Now we're going to actually evaluate the wine. Before evaluating, again, learn how to introduce oxygen into your mouth when you have liquid in there, just like that. But you're also going to want to remember to identify what the body of the wine is, what is the weight on your tongue, how much are you salivating. So let's taste. First thing that I'm noticing, it's very fresh. There are no faulty aromas or flavors going on at all in this wine. It's gorgeous. What I'm also noticing is that I've had to swallow my spit quite a bit after swallowing the initial sip of wine. That would indicate a high acid wine. I noticed that this wine has a little bit of weight to it, but it doesn't feel like I took a sip of heavy cream. Heavy cream would indicate a full-bodied wine versus skim milk, which would be a light-bodied wine. I'm also noticing that this wine has a very long finish. I'm talking quite a bit, but I'm still tasting that wine. And of course, the aromas. Just like you did with the smelling portion of this evaluation, do you taste fruit, earth, graham crackers, grass? That's up to you. And the same would go for your red wines, in our case, Pinot Noir. The difference between tasting a white wine versus a red wine is you will want to think about tannin. Tannin is a component of the body of the wine, but at the same time, it can give you a different texture. So if you feel that you took your sip of wine and your mouth just completely dried up and shrank out, and you can feel the texture of your tongue, that would be a pretty high tannin wine. Evaluating wine can sound very intimidating. It's something that you see all of the folks in the tasting room being able to pick out different flavors or aromas in the wine. It comes with practice, so don't be afraid to get things wrong. There are so many different complex flavors and aromas in wine. It's really challenging to pick them out without practice. So keep at it. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much for joining me on today's pro tip, the art of blind tasting. I'm Elizabeth, and I look forward to tasting again with you soon. Cheers.